Caitlin Clark didn't have to say a word. She just didn't show up. Neither did Angel Reese, Sabrina Ionescu, or Aaliyah Boston. And the result? Unrivaled's ratings nosedived. The second season of the much-hyped player-run league averaged just 107,000 viewers, with some games drawing as few as 32,000. The message was brutal but unmistakable. Fans follow stars, not causes.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
No matter the union's rhetoric, Unrivaled couldn't survive without its top talent. The idea that a league could succeed on solidarity alone has been shattered, and the timing couldn't be worse for union leaders who bank their negotiating strategy on unrivaled success. The credibility crisis runs deep. Stewart and Collier, both serving on the WNBA Executive Committee, weren't just investors. They were architects of the failed plan. And now, their dual roles raise hard questions about where loyalties lie. The WNBA, for its part, has already moved to reward players with historic salary increases, offering over $530,000 on average and $250,000 minimums. But with no credible alternative left, and 80% of the league's players stuck in contract limbo, rejecting that offer no longer looks like bold negotiation. It looks like self-sabotage. It's over. The WNBA's bluff has been called, and the numbers did the talking. Unrivaled, once hyped as the players' grand answer to WNBA power dynamics, just went off a cliff. The ratings crash wasn't a bad week. It wasn't a slow start. It was a total collapse. A 65% nosedive between the first and second seasons. Opening games pulled in just 107,000 viewers. Some broadcasts on True TV barely scratched 32,000. That's not leverage. That's a liability. The idea behind Unrivaled was simple. Give players leverage by creating their own stage. Prove they don't need the WNBA to earn, grow, or shine. But after 2 seasons, the league's exposure didn't show strength. It exposed weakness. It revealed what everyone in the boardrooms already suspected. The audience isn't following women's basketball. They're following specific players. And when those players aren't on the court, viewers don't show up. Caitlin Clark didn't play. Neither did Angel Reese, or Aaliyah Boston, or Sabrina Ionescu. These aren't just stars. They're the entire gravitational pull of the women's game right now. Without them, Unrivaled didn't just lose marquee names. It lost relevance. And what makes this worse for the union is that Unrivaled wasn't a side project. It was built and run by the union's own leaders. Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier aren't just athletes. They're vice presidents of the WNBA. So when their alternative league tanks, it's not just a business failure. It's a negotiation disaster. They were the ones sitting at the table demanding more pay, more power, a bigger cut of the pie. And in theory, they had a case. The WNBA is growing. Caitlin Clark's rookie season sent attendance through the roof. Viewership skyrocketed. Merch sales exploded. The players helped build that momentum. But in negotiation, having a case doesn't matter if you don't have options. And now the one option the players had, Unrivaled, is falling apart on live TV. TNT has a 9-figure media deal with Unrivaled. But that contract includes a 3-year opt-out clause. With the current ratings, that clause might as well be a countdown clock. If the numbers don't rebound immediately, and nothing suggests they will, there's no reason for broadcasters to stay locked in. And once the networks pull out, it's game over. To make matters worse, Union President Nneka Agwamike is already off promoting another alternative, Project B. This is the Saudi-backed global circuit scheduled to launch in 2027, promising $2 million contracts and equity shares. It signed 10 WNBA players, Agwamike included. But right now, it's vaporware. No TV deals, no schedule, no confirmed audience. And it doesn't start for another 3 years. So if you're a current WNBA player hoping to strike or sit out for leverage, where are you going? Not Unrivaled. Not Project B. Not anywhere with real viewership or infrastructure. The only platform with proven ratings, consistent scheduling, sponsorships, and actual fan engagement is still the WNBA. That's why this moment is such a turning point. The players had leverage until the numbers came in. They had an alternative until it flopped. They had unity until top names opted out of Unrivaled and sent a clear message. Not all players are on board with the union's current direction. Even with those fractures, the WNBA didn't come to the table empty-handed. They made the most significant offer in league history, raising the maximum salary from $249,000 to $1.3 million, raising the minimum to $250,000, raising the average salary to over $530,000. This is the biggest pay raise in the history of women's sports. It acknowledges the league's growth and the players' role in it. It says, we see the value. We're ready to pay for it. But the union said no. Instead, they demanded 30% of gross revenue, a model that would bring the salary cap to $10.5 million. The problem is gross revenue doesn't account for expenses. Not travel, not marketing, not operating costs. And right now, the WNBA is still losing between $40 and $50 million a year, even with the explosion in attention. The league responded with a counteroffer, 70% of net revenue. That's what's left after bills are paid. It would result in a more modest $5 million cap, but it's sustainable. The union insists on more. But after the crash of Unrivaled, what's their leverage now? A strike? They authorized one. 98% of players voted yes. But that vote came before the ratings collapse. Before Unrivaled proved that without stars, fans tune out. Before Project B revealed that it's not a functioning alternative, but a vague promise years down the line. Now that free agency is frozen, the CBA expired, and 80% of players are stuck without contracts, the stakes have changed. A strike wouldn't show strength. It would look like desperation. And it would risk alienating fans who just started tuning in. That's the part union leadership doesn't want to talk about. The fact that momentum is fragile. That the spotlight Caitlin Clark helped bring to the league could flicker out if the games stop and the drama starts. People don't want to watch contract negotiations. They want to watch basketball. In a prolonged work stoppage, it invites fans to move on. It opens the door for younger, cheaper players to step in. If the games go on, and viewers stick around, it proves the one thing the WNBA doesn't want proven, that the WNBA can survive without its current stars. That would be a worst-case scenario. But with every day that passes, it becomes more likely. This is the danger of overplaying your hand. The WNBA made the boldest moves it's ever made, and now they're exposed. Their backup plan failed on national television. Their unity is splintered. And their credibility has been damaged by the fact that the same people pushing the hardest for structural change are also running side leagues that just tanked. It's not personal. It's not petty. It's reality. Negotiations are about leverage, not emotion, not legacy, not entitlement. And right now, the WNBA has all the leverage. They're offering historic pay increases. They're still growing, despite operating at a loss. And they have the one thing Unrivaled and Project B haven't delivered, an audience. So what happens next? The players can take the deal, lock in the race, secure long-term gains through sustainable growth. Or they can keep pushing, keep holding out, keep pretending that failed alternatives are real threats. But the longer they wait, the more they risk losing. Because if the WNBA walks away from this deal and fans walk away from them, there's no third act. Just silence, missed opportunity, and a league that finally had the world's attention, only to squander it. Drop your thoughts below. Did Unrivaled destroy the union's credibility? Should the players take the WNBA's offer? Or do they still have a path forward? Hit like if you're ready for this labor standoff to end. Share this if someone you know still thinks Unrivaled is a viable threat. And don't forget to subscribe, because one way or another, the future of women's basketball is being decided right now. The WNBA Players Union is staring down a reality it hoped it could outrun. The leverage it once had gone. The bold moves that were supposed to flip the power dynamic collapsed. And the longer this standoff drags on, the more obvious it becomes that the entire negotiation strategy was built on a foundation that just cracked in front of everyone. Unrivaled wasn't just a failed side project. It was the fallback plan. The statement, the pressure point. It was supposed to prove the players didn't need the WNBA to survive or thrive. But when the second season dropped and viewership fell off a cliff, that plan publicly imploded. And not quietly, not behind closed doors. The numbers were visible. The media picked it up. Fans saw the drop. Networks noticed. A 65% decrease in viewership from year one to year two doesn't just suggest disinterest, it screams irrelevance. Some of the games on True TV didn't even reach 35,000 viewers. That's not just underperforming. That's dead air. And what was the WNBPA's fallback when that happened? There wasn't one, because their entire bluff, built around the idea that players could walk away and build something better, just got aired out in real time. Now, the union is stuck in an awkward place. Their bargaining position was never based on profits or cash flow or even fan loyalty. It was based on the threat to leave. Walk away. Start fresh. Take their talent elsewhere. But when elsewhere can't pull even a fraction of the audience, that threat becomes meaningless. There's no weight behind it. No consequence for the league. And that's where the panic starts to set in. The players are locked in a standoff. Free agency is frozen. 80% of them are unable to sign new contracts. Team planning is paralyzed. Expansion talks have stalled. And fans? They're starting to check out. Not because they don't care, but because no one's giving them a reason to stick around. All while the WNBA, the league they're supposedly ready to leave, is offering them the biggest raise in women's sports history. Let that sink in. Max salary? Jumping from $249,000 to $1.3 million. Minimum salary? From $67,000 to $250,000. Average player salary? From $120,000 to over $530,000. Those aren't marginal improvements. That's a total restructuring of the pay scale. The WNBA is finally putting real money on the table. And the union's response? Rejected. Because they want 30% of gross revenue. Not net. Gross. That's the money before anything is paid. Before travel, before venue costs, before staffing, before marketing, before expansion initiatives. The WNBA pushed back, offering 70% of net revenue instead. Why? Because they're still losing tens of millions of dollars annually, between $40 and $50 million, even after Caitlin Clark's arrival exploded attendance and viewership. That's the part that keeps getting glossed over. Even in a record-breaking season, the WNBA isn't profitable yet. The league is still investing, still building, still subsidizing the product to scale it. Asking for 30% of gross revenue when the business isn't netting profits is asking to be paid before the league pays its bills. That's not sustainable. That's fantasy accounting. And what's worse, the union knows it. They know the league is growing. They know this isn't the same WNBA of 5 years ago. And they know Caitlin Clark's presence has turned a corner for fan engagement, sponsorships, and broadcast interest. But instead of recognizing the opportunity and building with it, they've decided now is the time to draw a line. Why? Because of ego. Because of optics. Because they can't walk back the narrative they sold the players, that they could get everything now or the league would suffer. Except the league isn't suffering. The union is. Unrivaled collapsed. Project B is still a theory. And now the clock is ticking. If the players don't take the deal soon, a strike becomes their only move, and a strike with no public sympathy and no alternative league isn't a power play. It's a gamble with no backup plan. And if they go through with it, the consequences could be permanent. The league can replace players. That's the hard truth. Not easily, not painlessly, but they can do it. NCAA talent is waiting. G League-style pipelines can be built. New stars can be made. And once the games go on without the striking players, if ratings hold or even grow, the union loses all credibility. The idea that the league needs them to function becomes a myth. And fans? Fans don't have to stay loyal. This isn't 1996. The sports market is crowded. Attention spans are short. Loyalty isn't unconditional. Fans who are just beginning to embrace the WNBA because of Clark, because of the on-court product, because of the personalities, will not sit around indefinitely. If the league shuts down, or worse, If it becomes known more for internal dysfunction than highlight plays, people will move on. The moment will fade. The growth will stall. And women's basketball, right when it was finally hitting a new peak, will lose the very momentum it needed most. And here's the kicker. This wouldn't be the first time a sports union misread the room. Look back at the 1994 MLB strike. The players walked out. They thought fans would back them. Instead, they got crushed in the court of public opinion. Attendance dipped for years. Television deals suffered. The sport never fully recovered its cultural dominance. And all for a standoff that ended with the players coming back anyway. The WNBA is dangerously close to walking that same path. They're not being offered scraps. They're not being lowballed. The WNBA's deal, while not perfect, is a legitimate, historic step forward. One that reflects not just the league's growth, but the players' rising influence. If they take it, they lock in more earning potential than ever before. They show momentum. They prove that success brings results. And they build trust with the fans. If they don't, they risk burning it all down over a miscalculated power play that started with a side league that couldn't keep an audience. Let's be clear, this isn't just about Unrivaled anymore. It's about leadership, decision-making, accountability. Because the very people who led the union into this moment, who pushed the narrative that they didn't need the WNBA, are the ones who created the league that just failed. Stewart, Collier, Ogilmike. These aren't just players. They were the architects of the plan. And now that the plan didn't work, players are stuck. Frozen out. Contractless. Powerless. And the fans? They're watching it all unfold. So where do we go from here? The players have a choice. Double down on a failed strategy or pivot and build something lasting. They can embrace the deal, stabilize the market, and keep the momentum going. Or they can continue posturing, hoping fans won't notice the cracks, while the media and public patience wear thin. The league is growing. That's not up for debate. But the union has to decide whether it wants to grow with it or fight it and risk losing the very thing they've worked so hard to build. The longer this drags out, the clearer it becomes. The WNBA backed itself into a corner. And now, all eyes are on how, or if they get out of it. They sold the players a vision. A future where they could demand top-dollar salaries, walk if they didn't get them, and play in shiny new leagues built by themselves for themselves. A future where the WNBA would have to meet their terms or risk losing the very talent driving its growth. But that future is crumbling. The myth of leverage is gone. Unrivaled exposed it. This wasn't a misstep or a temporary glitch. This was the plan, the fallback, the proof point that players didn't need to wait on the WNBA's slow climb. They could build their own platform now. But when viewership crashed and broadcasters began looking for exits, that proof turned into a cautionary tale. Because when the lights turned on and the cameras started rolling, the fans didn't show up. And without fans, nothing else matters. This is sports. It doesn't run on intention or empowerment alone. It runs on attention. And without Caitlin Clark, Sabrina Ionescu, Angel Reese, and Aaliyah Boston, Unrivaled didn't have it. No shade to the players who suited up. This isn't about talent. It's about visibility. You can't run a league off player pride alone. You need stars, engagement, and a product people actually watch. And when that product averaged fewer viewers than a mid-season lacrosse game, the WNBA's credibility took a direct hit. You can't sit across from league execs and demand gross revenue splits before operating costs when the alternative you helped build is tanking. You can't threaten a strike when your plan B is pulling high school football numbers. You can't ask for a $10.5 million salary cap when the only platform strong enough to pay those salaries is the one you're currently rejecting. And now the freeze is costing players real money. Free agency is locked. Roster movement is frozen. 8 out of 10 players can't sign contracts. Teams can't plan. Players can't train with their future squads. Nobody knows who's staying, who's leaving, or where the league is even headed in the next month. That kind of uncertainty doesn't just hurt morale, it drains momentum. Momentum that Caitlin Clark just brought to the league. Momentum that finally had people tuning in, buying tickets, asking questions, and watching more than the finals. That kind of attention doesn't come often. And if this freeze lingers long enough, the league risks sending all of those new fans a message. Don't bother getting invested. And let's talk about Caitlin for a second. She's not just a star. She's the engine of the WNBA's current relevance. Her rookie year exploded onto the scene. Triple viewership, sold-out arenas, a record-breaking merch wave. Her games are events. And yet, she didn't touch Unrivaled, didn't sign with Project B, didn't attach her name to any side leagues or symbolic protest moves. And that silence? That decision to stay put and focus on this league? It spoke volumes. Because whether the union wants to admit it or not, Caitlin Clark is the league's center of gravity right now. She didn't create the WNBA, but she's redefined its market value. She's opened new doors with fans, sponsors, and media partners. And when she passes on these alternative leagues, it sends a message. This is where the real opportunity is. And guess what? The public agrees. The data agrees. The networks agree. So now the WNBPA finds itself in a worse position than when it started. Because not only has it lost the leverage it thought it had, it's now fighting against the narrative that it's the one holding the league back. That's a dangerous shift. Because fans can support fair pay. They can rally around athletes fighting for better conditions. But when the freeze starts hurting the very growth they want to support, sympathy fades. People start asking, why are the players rejecting $1.3 million max salaries again? Why won't they accept a $250,000 minimum? Why is the market frozen when there's a deal on the table that raises pay across the board? The longer those questions go unanswered, the more the union looks out of touch. Not bold, not principled, just stuck. And the strike vote? That 98% approval from earlier? That was before Unrivaled bombed. Before it became clear that walking out meant walking nowhere. That number might not hold up now. Not when real salaries are on the line. Not when younger players are watching their windows close. Not when new talent is waiting to take their spot. Because let's not kid ourselves. If a strike happens, the league will bring in replacements. NCAA stars, overseas players, free agents looking for their shot. And if even a fraction of them catch fire, the union's bargaining power takes a permanent hit. And worse, if the product holds, if fans don't drop off, if viewership doesn't crater, then the league will prove what no union ever wants proven, that no player is bigger than the game, not even the stars. So what does the WNBPA do now? Double down on the fantasy of leverage and wait for Project B to maybe, hopefully, someday come together? Or take the deal on the table, a deal that pays more than any previous CBA by a mile, and build forward from a place of partnership? Because here's what's real. The WNBA's offer isn't an insult. It's not exploitation. It's a massive financial leap that reflects the league's current growth and its current limitations. You can't ask to be paid like a profitable league when the books are still in the red. The WNBA is still losing $40 to $50 million annually, even with record attendance and viewership. That's the reality. And while that's changing, and yes, players should benefit from that growth, it has to be based on what's sustainable, not what looks good on Twitter. This is a business. A sport, yes, but also a business. And if the WNBPA continues to treat negotiations like a war for public validation instead of a long-term economic partnership, they'll miss the window. The fans they gained? Gone. The trust they built? Broken. The unity they claimed? Fractured. They have a choice. Right now, they can accept the deal, lock in generational pay increases, keep the season alive, and show the world that women's sports can thrive when players and leagues move forward together. Or they can stall and lose everything. So what do you think? Has the WNBPA pushed this too far? Is the WNBA's offer as fair as it sounds? Should players hold out for gross revenue? Or take the win and build from there? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this if you think it's time to end the freeze. Share it if you know someone still holding out hope for Unrivaled. And subscribe, because this story isn't over yet, and the next move could change women's basketball forever.